Brakati Yahweh, Brakati Yahushai, Brakati Yahweh, Brakati Yahushai, Brakati Yahweh, Brakati Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahushai, Ba'ashim Chakodash. That belongs to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone True Well. Salutation to the hopeful elect out there, Yuakim, the Sadakim, that do the sick of the utmost truth and sincerity. On the pre-Shemon, we're going to be going, just continuing the book of Jeremiah, the 51st chapter. We left off at the 11th verse. So I'm going to kick it off right now. This is Jeremiah chapter 51, verse 11. It says, make bright the arrows, gather the shields. Just before, we ended part one, we was going into the nuclear destruction, and this is what this is carrying into, right? Arrows representing the missiles. Notice it says make bright the arrows, right? If you watch the movie 300, in the ancient world, when arrows were shot, from one nation to the next, it would blot out the sun, right? It would look like it's just a bunch of, you see a bunch of dark streaks or what have you. Now 300 did dramatize it, but you get the point, right? But these arrows shall be bright. It's talking about the missiles, right? When these missiles are shot, they got the propulsion behind it, and you just see sparks. In fact, in Revelation called them falling stars. That's what they're going to look like. The shaking of a fig tree. Different prophets described it different ways. So that's what we're dealing with. It says, make bright the arrows, gather the shields. The Lord had raised up the spirit of the kings of the Medes. Now, one might think, this is talking about the Medo-Persian Empire, which did, succeed Babylon. The Medes that it's talking about from a prophetic standpoint is Russia. All right. For his device is against Babylon to destroy it, because it is the vengeance of the Lord. And on paper, disclosed to the public, Russia has the most nuclear missiles. Right. Now, back when there was the Soviet Union, a part of the agreement was they were to, denuclearize their missiles. But they have a shit ton of missiles. You don't need that much missiles to completely destroy America, because it's really about the yield of the warhead. How many megatons of TNT that warhead, or has multiple warheads, which you could put a shit ton of warheads in one missile. And that device, again, is going to the thermonuclear destruction. This thing is right around the corner. J.D. Vance, he has come out, talked about the current situation with having the dollar as the world reserve currency, how it's not stable, how it's going to collapse. They need to come up with a new form of world reserve currency. They shot different options. One of them they mentioned was having a universal stable coin, which will maintain its value, right? And that will offer liquidity to other nations that want to borrow at 0%. Because right now the big thing is nobody want to buy U.S. Treasuries because the yield is too low. So they have suggested, hey, instead of making these treasuries longer term, let's make them short term, shorter term treasuries, higher rates. But again, this is not sustainable. At some point, all this will collapse, because the RFID microchip has to be used as currency. All right, and that's what the prophecies say. All right. So it says, make bright the arrows, gather the shields. The Lord hath raised up the spirit of the kings of the Medes for his device. For his devices against Babylon to destroy it, because it is the vengeance of the Lord, the vengeance of his temple. Verse 12: set up the standard upon the walls of Babylon. Make the watch strong. Set up the watchmen. Or going to the standard being the Bible, the watchmen being the prophets. It says, set up the standard upon the walls of Babylon, make the watch strong, set up the watchmen, prepare this the ambushes, for the Lord hath both devised and done done that which he spake against the inhabitants of Babylon. O thou that dwellest upon many waters, abundant in treasures, thine end is come, and the measure of thy covetousness. Dwelling upon many waters. Revelation 17 and 15, the waters which thou sawest, represents peoples, nations. Verse 14, the Lord of hosts hath sworn by himself, saying, surely I will fill thee with the men as with caterpillars, and they shall lift up a shout against thee. He hath made the earth by his power, he hath established the world by his wisdom. That's enough of that. Let me jump into the book of Revelation, the 6th chapter. Let's do that. Revelation chapter 6, verse 1. And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard as it were the noise of thunder, one of the four beasts saying, come and see. Verse 2. And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him. So this horse represents power, right? In the vehicles, horsepower. White represents purity. The person that's sitting upon this white horse is who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. This is Yahweh Shah. He had a bow in his hand, which is an instrument of war. And what this is going into is when the Lord will return via the chariots, what the world ignorantly call UFOs. And a crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. And just dovetailing what we just read about in the book of Jeremiah, in the midst of this nuclear destruction, Yahweh shall return, and he's going to come to conquer. All right, scriptures speak about him having many crowns, meaning many different rulerships he shall subdue. All right, so once America is utterly destroyed, the Russians are going to be leading the charge, joint with these other nations, against the Lord of hosts. But when you go on the second Ezra, the 13th chapter, you find out that their efforts are futile. He's conquering and to conquer. And when he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, come and see. And there went out another horse that was red. Now, who's this red horse talking about, right? Remember, there's power. Red is going into Edom, so-called white man, Esau, Edom. Who is actually red? And red is also associated with sin, crimson. It says, and there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth. To take peace from the earth. That's what the so-called white man has done. All these different laws, all these different things that you did to affect the planet Earth, it literally took away peace. That's why the people are in mourning. The scriptures tell you when the wicked bear rule, the people mourn, but when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. No one's rejoicing right now. Alright? People are in debt. The food is messed up. Everything. The laws are or crazy against you, Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. This place has gone to shit. So that's why the Lord has to come back and make things right side up. Right? Scriptures tell you that the turning of his, surely the turning of things upside down shall be esteemed as the potter's clay. It's going to be broken. 4. And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that there should kill one another, and there was given unto him a great sword. Now there's a lot to digest right there, because given, what does it say in the book of Job 9:24? The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. So this man was set up by the Most High. Okay? All these things that are happening, you might say, well, the Lord doesn't do evil. Yes, he does. I mean, the ignorant might say that. You know, when you read Amos, the 3rd chapter, there's a 6 to 7. Surely the Lord, it says, shall there be evil from the evil in the land that the Lord has not done it? You also have the book of Isaiah that tells you the Lord deals with darkness and light. So this man, the physical counterpart of the spiritual demon Satan, is another cog in the wheel. Alright? Just like when you write a movie, you go see a movie, you have a hero, you have a villain. You know, but the person that scripted, the director, he's in control of the entire story. And that's the Heavenly Father. It goes on to say that they should kill one another, right? How? Well, we just read about it, the missiles. Okay? That's that great sword. 5. And when he had opened the 3rd seal, I heard the 3rd beast say, come and see. And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hands. Now this is going into famine. This is going into inflation. It's going into death. 6. And I heard a voice in the midst of the 4 beasts saying, a measure of wheat for a penny. A measure of wheat for a penny. Now the penny is going into a day's wage of work. So a day's wage of work for bread. It says, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. So the oil and the wine represents the truth, right? But the first part, the previous part of what I was reading about, this is going into hyperinflation. Okay. And if you think about it, you get bread right now, because we've seen that on a micro level. Let's say you go $4 right now to get some bread, or $3 something to get some bread. Just, I don't know, I want to say like 50, 60 years ago, that was a day's wage. There was a time in America where $3 and $4, was a lot of money. Okay? But again, that inflation. Okay? And at some point you're going to see hyperinflation, which is also going to be a part of the plan to collapse the dollar system and introduce that RFID microchip. A lot of this shit you see before you is going to be done by design. Alright? The elites, they have the resources to fix everything, but they don't want to fix everything. Alright? They want to create chaos and then provide the solution. Go ahead. And they will provide the solution, which is that chip. We always say it. Anybody's teaching you that you could get that chip, or it's alright to take the RFID microchip, that's a false prophet that's sold out. Alright? 7. And when they had opened the 4th seal, I heard the voice of the fourth beast say, "Come and see." And I looked, and behold, a pale horse. No, sorry. This pale horse right here is death. And his name that sat on him was Death. And hell followed. Martial law, Jacob's trouble, race riots, class riots. That's what's coming. And hell followed with him, and power was given unto him, unto them over the fourth part, unto the fourth part of the earth, to kill with the sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beast of the earth. So Salakia, this pale horse is really going into the death. The black horse is going into inflation. Pardon me on that. But that's what's coming here. You know? Bodies on the street like dung. Sometimes you wonder if people really stop and get into this book, man, because if you really get into this book with some understanding, you find out some really crazy things are coming. And the only way to get through it is being delivered via the Lord, calling on his name, Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. I'm going to stop right here, brothers. Approach the destination. Give all praises to Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, Bashim Chakodash, that belongs to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone True Well. Salutations to the hopeful elect out there, Akim, the Zadakim, that do the second utmost truth and sincerity. Shalom.